Welcome to Tokyosaurus. So what's up in Japan? Dragon Quest XI has finally released in Japan, and after an 8-year-long drought for a proper main series sequel to the Dragon Quest franchise, this game is legit the biggest video game launch Japan has seen in years. We all know Japan loves Dragon Quest, but just how much does it really? Here are some numbers just to give you some perspective. Dragon Quest XI launched on both the PS4 and the 3DS, being the two consoles that have the biggest install base right now. In the first 2 days of launch, they have already sold over 2 million copies in just retail. So that doesn't even count all the digital copies that were sold over the PlayStation Store and the Nintendo eShop. And you can bet there's a considerable amount of people who didn't want to line up for hours outside game stores and electronic stores in the middle of summer in Japan. In Akiba, there were reports of lines going over 200 people at the bigger department stores that were sure to carry a ton of copies of the game. They even had to open specific lines at the counters just to deal with the Dragon Quest XI pre-orders. Think iPhone launch lineups a few years back. That's how hectic it looks. Now back to some numbers again. The 3DS version sold 1.1 million copies, while the PS4 version sold about 950,000. Which also meant they also helped sell a bunch of new consoles as well, starting with the 3DS seeing over a 4 times increase in their weekly sales, and the PS4 seeing over a 3 times increase in their weekly sales. Now compare this to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild selling 230,000 copies during its first 3 days, Splatoon 2 selling 670,000 copies in its first 3 days, which was already record-breaking for the Switch, Monster Hunter X selling 1.5 million copies in its first 2 days, and finally, Pokemon Sun and Moon selling 1.9 million copies at retail during its first 3 days. Dragon Quest XI has them all beat, and it did the job a day earlier. So, this game is big. And you know what else is big? Martina. She's a character in DQ11, and she is already getting serious waifu status in Japan. Being badass and looking fabulous while doing so, that is also a female, seems to have resonated with the fans, and there is already a ton of fan art and cosplay of her all over the internet. I promise you, you are definitely going to see more of her in cosplay form as the year goes on, and especially once this game comes out in the West, which if you haven't heard yet, is in fact being localized but is slated to be released in 2018. The work has already started with 5 different languages in development, but this leads us to Dragon Quest XI's biggest controversy, or mini controversy, at least for the fans in the West. There is actually no voice acting in this game, for a game in 2017. No voice acting? Are you serious? So the series creator had an explanation for this, and it was that he wanted to fine-tune the story until the very last moment. And if they used voice acting, they wouldn't be able to change the script, which meant the story wouldn't be as well written. Faster release date and a better story, or voice acting. I think if the Japanese audience had to choose, it would definitely be the faster release date after all those long years of waiting. But now that the script is finished, could it be possible that they would add voices to the Western release of the game, like they did with Dragon Quest VIII's release in the West? Very possible. And seeing how the game will also be coming onto the Switch at a later date, this could be a welcomed addition to newer versions of the game with a fully voiced script, preferably in both Japanese and in other languages. The Switch release date hasn't been talked about yet either, but it's most likely going to coincide with a Western release on the PS4 and the 3DS. Guess in the meantime, we'll just all have to pafu while we wait for the eventual Western release next year on the 3 consoles. Anyways, are you excited for Dragon Quest XI coming to the West, or are you already done the game? As usual, let me know down in the comments below. Thumbs up the video if you liked it, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications for Tokyosaurus for the latest things people are talking about in Japan. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.